And now we're going to talk about General's Handbook 2020 auxiliary objectives. So we're back from the break, and we're just going to talk about our auxiliary match play objectives. So these are kind of like the hidden agendas that are in the handbook on page 108, 109. But I think it's important to understand there are some changes. If people you're going to a tournament using the pitch battle tournament pack on page 112, there are some important changes. How they're read.
Yeah, so I read originally that it was 2, but if you go to the actual pitch battle pack, it says you pick 3. So that's something to definitely consider, because I didn't even notice that to begin with.
It's a huge difference. If you're playing one game and you can pick 2 of 18, that's lol. And if you're going to a 5-game tournament, you have to use 15 out of 18.
Yeah, some of them are pretty tasty as well, aren't they?
Yeah. I think the thing is as well, do we think that people are going to be using the pitch battle tournament pack going forward? Do you think this is going to be the standard, like the independent tournament scene standard as well as the GW events, or do you think it's not?
It'll probably be a baseline, won't it? They'll use people who will just use it or modify it to their own pack, or they'll just have their own pack and it'll be similar enough anyway, because this is pretty standard, isn't it? It's not.
I think it's like with context. So if you're going to an event, one of the important things to do is to understand how you win and how things are weighted. So normally, like if we were going to a tournament and we could look at that rules pack, you might change the army you're taking, the list you're taking, your approach to the game, so it's more important than others, so you change the focus slightly. Obviously, because we've got a generic template here, I imagine that GW events would use this. So the context we're going to talk about is this context.
Yeah, it's because obviously, like you said, Russ, it's like when you go to a tournament and you're sort of like you're writing your list of the events, you need to understand how you're going to maximize your ability to win the mission at hand. Not only are you going to be able to compete in all the scenarios, be able to beat your opponent, but now you need to factor in how you're going to score these auxiliaries, because they're the points allocated to them in this pack, this tournament pack, is weighted quite high, isn't it? You know, you need to be able to, you wouldn't want to be giving up these points each game by not factoring in how you'd score the auxiliary objectives.
How do they factor in then? What is the maths of how they contribute to your final score?
Well, you get 5 for 1 completed, and then 10 for 2, and 15 for all 3. And obviously you get nothing if you didn't do any. But it's also worth noting that in the auxiliary objective page, it says if you have more than your opponent, a draw counts as a minor victory. But in the tournament pack bit, it specifically says that's not the case. So that it doesn't change a draw to a minor. You just receive bonus points instead. So a major victory is worth 60. That's another 25% points on top of that if you get all 3. So 15 is quite a bit, isn't it? I mean, it's worth almost a minor loss. So
if you lost, like in a 5-game event, if you lost one game, but you got all your missions in all the 4 games you got the major in, that's essentially like getting an extra major with no secondaries. So they will add up over the event.
Also, you're a bit more likely. Yeah, you're also a bit more likely to draw now. I think the new tool in there where the likelihood of getting
Byron's
a
gone
draw
again.
is far higher.
We've lost you.
Hello, testing. I can hear you.
Yeah, we've lost you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Can you start that bit again?
Shall I just say my thing again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Just in case. I mean, you're also much more likely to draw these days. Not in many of them, but it's barely been a thing in the past. I think you've got 1 or 2 scenarios now where a draw is not unlikely.
Yeah. I think it's like most, like when we run our events, the agendas gave you tournament points, but they weren't enough. They were a small proportion. Normally 25% is where I normally aim most of the packs at. I think you know, you're 16 for the major, and then there was 4 for the, which is 25%. So it's the same ratio actually. So I think it's very standard to what we were doing. I think the difference is now you've got 3 rather than 2, and actually I think a lot of these missions are a lot harder than the hidden agendas, because some of the agendas were like auto lol turn 1 I've got it.
Yeah.
You know.
No, it's not that case anymore. I mean, shall I start running down the list?
Yeah, so we're going to go through all 18, and we'll just give you a little bit of what we think of it, and some examples of lists or scenarios that might be good in, and then, you know, just give you guys a bit of guidance on it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think it's worth noting half of these, I'd say, are either hard or quite unlikely to happen. Like literally like 9 out of 18. So the first one is the Aggressor. You complete this auxiliary objective if you control all of the objectives wholly within your opponent's territory. This does not include objectives located on the borderline of a territory. So it doesn't say a time there. I assume that means at any point. Just if you control them, then you're good.
Yeah. So it'd be when you factor in the control. So obviously, like some missions, you've got to be a little bit careful. Like shifting objectives doesn't have any objectives in their territory, because the territory is just a little small box. So you've got to make sure you look at the map of the mission when you do it. You know, for example, if you're in an objective when you're burning them, like, you know, scorched earth and things like that, I suppose you could take control then you burn it, I guess. So you could score that. Like Total Conquest, there's only 1 objective in their territory. Same with Knife to the Heart. So some of those missions where there's only a single objective to take in their territory that isn't on a border.
They're going to be clustered. Yeah, they're going to be clustered around it, though. The ones where it's more obvious what you have to do, it's more obvious. If that ties into the major way to win the game, then people are going to be bunkering, aren't they?
Yeah, but I think if you're going to win, if you think you're looking at their army and thinking, oh, I'm going to steamroller this, I've got this game, then I think you can. You just go, well, I'm going to play for the fact I'm going to be on their home objective of Battle for the Pass, and just play for it, because worth more VPs. You know it's a strategy. You know that's your objective. So you know it may not come off and you might lose, but you know.
Those are the games that you take when you take that in the mission that you're going to smash your opponent, like you said, and also like just factoring in that, like, it's that little bit. How many people will play this mission and then realise that they haven't actually got the objective in your opponent's territory? Like you said, Russ, there's only a couple that I can think of, and they go, right, I'll use this one now, and then go, there's no objectives in the territory.
Oh, it's on the line. Yeah, it's easily done. And I mean, as you get to the later games in a tournament, this stuff gets way more difficult to manage. The next one is Assassinate. When you reveal this auxiliary objective, your opponent must pick 1 unit in their starting army that is a hero. You complete this auxiliary objective if that hero is slain before the end of the battle. Terry would enjoy this one. He's got indestructible heroes
as well. Yeah, you pick your tanky hero and just sit them safe, but it doesn't say you can't pick something that's not on the board. So it just says in their starting army. So you could pick like a hidden assassin and then just reveal it later. Pop it on turn 5 or whenever before the end of the game, and go, well, you didn't kill it.
Quite a lot of books you have to be on by turn 3 or you're counted as destroyed, aren't you? So you can. I mean, it is a good way of protecting. It's a bit like Legion of Night with Manfred. You could just keep him off the table and be like, well, you can't kill him because he's not on the table. Yeah.
So you just sort of hide out for 3 turns and then pop up in like a nice little safe spot and then go and hide for the last 2.
But it's
often by turn 3 people are glued together or in a specific place with the other objectives anyway. If you pop up literally on a table edge, which is what a lot of these people do, you could be like 4 feet away from the action.
It's a good one to deny your opponent anyway, if you've got something in your list that can do that.
Yeah, I think it's knowing, if you write a list with one of those sort of ancillary heroes you don't need to function in your army that you can keep safe. It's quite a good thing to have in your back pocket.
Or you just pick a tank.
Yeah.
Like if I was against, if I was against something that wasn't a shooting army, the support great and clean one with the wither save that sits behind everything doesn't really ever die. So that was the one I always picked when you have to keep the artifacts alive. Was Ancient Heirlooms before, wasn't it? I don't think I ever gave that mission up once ever with that Nurgle list, because it's hard to get to them because they're surrounded. So that's quite a good one, Assassinate, especially because you pick it, you know.
Yeah.
So your opponent, your opponent picks it. So you know your army, you decide what they have to kill, which I quite like.
Yeah, so if you're
The nice
writing
thing
a
about-
list, you just plan to have a unit that if your opponent uses that against you, they say, "Oh, my auxiliary is this one." You know straight away, I'm going to pick this model because it's a pain for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And quite a lot of armies have got a utility piece that doesn't have to be in the action to be useful. Like Les was talking about a Vexler last week. There's some formations where, like the Ard Boys formation, where you just have to take War Chancer, and if he's on the board, you have a chance of getting a unit back. He could be in the back right-hand table corner, and you're doing a pretty good job there. The thing that I like about this is the one character armies, or like one or two character armies that they've maxed out on other stuff. It makes you really consider that, because if you're turning up and you've got Nagash and a Necromancer, like obviously a Necromancer's fairly good at bouncing wounds and stuff, but it does make you consider where you should be putting another one in. So it forces you to write a slightly more rounded list or gamble, basically.
I think those games, when you do that super big bad hero, if they die, you generally lose anyway, so you might as well just pick them.
Yeah.
So,
Good
if you
point.
spent half your army on Nagash, you might as well make him everything, right?
Yeah.
It's like, let's put more eggs in that basket and then put the basket on another basket of eggs. Why not?
Exactly. Why not? He's 800 and something points, isn't he?
8
The
now,
next
ridiculous.
The next one is the bait. When you reveal this auxiliary objective, you must pick one friendly unit in your starting army. You complete this auxiliary objective if that unit is destroyed by an enemy unit before the end of the third battle round. So that's one of the more easy ones, because you suicide bomb something, and you can still get, a lot of armies can still get utility out of that. You're not just throwing it away. I see that as one of the more friendly ones.
Yeah, you put it on your chaff screen that's going to get killed anyway. And just, if they want to get through to your stuff, they've got to go through the crap little unit at the front, haven't they? So it's going to die.
It's quite nice to put your opponent in a sticky place. Like, here you go, here's something that's in the way. You could run around it for 2 turns, or you could get through it in 1, but then you're not getting that 1 point. So I quite like that one.
One thing I would say on that, it doesn't say, it says say by an enemy unit, doesn't it? So if you've got ways to destroy the unit that aren't from one of your units, so like an endless spell, for example, that you could finish a unit off with an endless spell, and then they wouldn't be killed by one of your units. So there might be a sneaky way to get rid of the screen without actually
because if it battle shocks, that's not technically killed by an enemy unit, is it? It's killed by battle shock.
No, exactly.
So you could actually end up losing out on that one if you've got a little screen of 10 men and they just come in and carefully pick off 6 of them and the other 4 died of battle shock. Then they fail that, don't they? So
the one way you could hack
your 6 charge.
Yeah, well, the one good ways you could do it is just to charge them into the enemy, because they have to fight you. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So the next one, cornered. You complete this auxiliary objective if you have 2 or more friendly units within 3 of the same enemy hero at the end of any turn. That is a lot of requirements. What if you kill that unit by accident? You can't choose to not fight now. If you've got 2 people next to one thing, you don't have to specify which hero it is. It could be any of your opponent's heroes, which is helpful. But if you pick a weak one, there's a good chance you kill it. And if you pick a strong one, there's a good chance it kills you.
Yeah, you think you have to... You could try and get a little bit of redundancy by putting 3 units into something, because then they have to kill 2 of the units not to score that. But it's very difficult because it's at the end of the turn. That's one I probably would very rarely pick.
Yeah. Well, it's within 3, so if you're worried about killing it and you've got short reach weapons, just don't pile in.
Yeah.
So activate, don't move, so you can't reach them. Otherwise, they could activate, move closer to you, and then you'll end up hitting them. Yeah. So again, that's quite a little tricky one. You could use that to control the combats a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So you could charge 2 chaffy units into a small hero, knowing that they're probably not going to do the 10 wounds to kill it, but you only put 1 model in range to fight that hero, and then on each unit, so you're not going to kill it because you probably only got 4 attacks anyway, and then he's going to swing back, probably not kill either of the units, so then you're going to score it, but it's going to be quite hard to pull that off.
I mean, the most important thing here is we're discussing a load of stuff which involves quite a bit of planning on the table. I think if you're doing this type of thing, you're probably not paying good attention to getting the major. Possibly, it's if my opponent picks that type of one, I'm going to be rubbing my hands, I think. Next, we have Defender. You complete this auxiliary objective if there are no enemy units within your territory at the end of the battle. Fairly standard.
Yeah.
Like, again, if you're winning, you're more likely to get that. If you're losing, as ever, stuff that can drop on like Canary or something like that is a really good way to be able to deny your opponent, or summoning or anything like that. Domination. So I think this one's pretty hard to pull off. If 3 or more enemy units are destroyed in the same turn, like that is quite a big ask. If you get rolled,
I think it's fairly easy.
Yeah,
a lot of
it depends what sort of armor you have. Because when I was playing Khorne, you probably kill 5 units in a turn quite happily. Because Scarbrand kills 2 or 3 on his own. When you're piling in multiple times with stuff that can kill 40 models in one round of combat, those ones aren't particularly hard. That from my like Nurgle army, on the other hand, you'd have to like work that so that you deplete the units and heroes really low. Be careful not to kill them, and then do them all in one turn. Because you don't really have the burst damage to just go in and take off 3 units in a go. So you'd have to whittle them down and play for that one, I think, and be quite clever to get that one with some lists.
If your army arrives at your opponent in waves as well, it's quite like you've got your guys getting there, and then you do some damage in your turn, but you might finish them off in their turn, and then your backup slow units arrive. I think it's if you've got a certain type of
armies should have no problem with that, because you just pick 3 small targets and shoot them all off in one go, don't you?
Yeah.
A couple of heroes and chaff screens.
If your opponent worries about Battle Shock, or if you've got an army that can exploit bravery and your opponent worries about Battle Shock, that's a bit more easy too, but still not a doddle. Grudge. When you reveal this auxiliary objective, you must pick 1 enemy hero in your opponent's starting army and 1 friendly hero in your starting army. You complete it if that enemy hero is slain by an attack made by a melee weapon by that friendly hero. That is 3 requirements. Hard.
Difficult
for a
one.
lot of armies. Yeah.
It might be quite a good one for the Prime. So if you're using a Celestant Prime, you could say, well, my Prime will kill this hero, because basically at any given point in the game you can come down and say, well, I'm 9 away, I'll make my charge automatically with the Prime ability, charge in, and then just bonk him over the head. So again,
you can shoot them a bit first too and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but it's you've got to get a hero into melee of something you got to kill, so it's very tricky. But it is.
Some armies will do that easy.
I think it's quite a good way to play head games with people, especially if you're playing like 3 Places of Arcane Power or something like that, and you can say, well, you want to kill that character in combat with your character anyway, and then you don't want them to kind of think twice about sticking them on the objective. So
you can also get someone to tie up if they don't have many screening units. What if they have to keep back like a substantial, like a medium elite unit of 20 guys back to put a board around the thing that they're protecting? Then those 20 guys aren't somewhere else on the table doing something useful potentially.
It's a bit like your Godrak list. You know, if you said that Godrak's going to go kill this big scary character, they're going to be like, well, I don't want Godrak being able to mighty destroyers or countercharge with Iron Suns or get into range of me to do that, because that's going to give you the auxiliary, but also like he's very capable of going into combat and killing something, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
I think with all of the really competitive builds, or what you'd see as the competitive builds at the moment, they're usually quite sort of like, they don't have big heroes either. Like take the Idnef list that's quite competitive at the moment. That really has a Tidecaster and 2 Soul Scryers. Like maybe 1. It doesn't really have many heroes that are going to want to fight. So it's a very different. Yeah, but most people don't. I mean, sometimes Voltonus is in the list, sometimes he's not. But Voltonus or the King's still quite easy to kill. I think that one's really good if you've got a super character to go in and kill something with. But if you run in sort of like the more, I mean, like look at like a Lumineth build. It's going to be maybe Teclis, maybe a Cathar. They're not really going to want to take that. because they're
In
not going to
melee.
want to. They're not going to want to fight anything. So it's very different. It's very difficult if you're running support heroes that aren't like a big killy hero and you're using them as like a support function. So look at Fire Slayer list. Your Fire Slayer heroes aren't really going to want to be fighting these because they don't do any of the heavy lifting. They just sit behind stuff and make the units better.
You need to.
And they struggle to reach. They struggle to reach too. Like they might just not get there on their little legs.
You need a big monstrous hero like a keeper, something like that. I mean, I'm looking at Kradron and go, the fact it's got to be in melee as well. I'm thinking, a KO hero that's going to kill you in combat, probably not going to happen, is it?
Just some of these you're not going to be able to do. So you just look at that one and go, well, I don't have a melee hero, so I'll have to get another. I'll have to get another objective elsewhere.
The only way I think you could probably do it is if you've got an admiral or someone on a boat, and you put the boat in, and you soften them up with all the Arcanauts, so then he just bonks them the last wound. But it's like the perfect storm, isn't it? So
it's like
and that's something you're going to have to factor in, especially if you're running like a 5-game tournament. Might be one of the ones that you don't take, but then that means then you're taking one of those other super difficult ones. So.
Yeah,
I think you're gonna when you write an army, you need to bear these in mind. But I don't think you'll be able to write a list that can compete in every scenario for every permutation of battle line, behemoth, and leader, and monster, and infantry, and hard to kill, plus all of these. So you're gonna have to make some choices. Just understand where you excel and where you don't.
I think 2/3, 3/4 max, and if you try to get more than that, you're probably writing a really weird army that is very good at secondaries and won't do as well in primaries. And you might get lucky. We spoke about Terry's list recently, and I think that's got quite a few of these covered, even the hard ones, but they're still very difficult ones. On the subject of which, Headhunter. You complete this if all the leader units in your opponent's starting army are destroyed before the end of the battle. Terry would love his opponent picking that. How often does that happen?
You're not going to kill... I've never lost all 3 Going Clean ones in a game. I've never lost that. I think at most I've lost 1, maybe 2. I think there's been games where 2 have died by turn 5, but that's a really brutal game to kill.
That's basically requiring you to, generally speaking, more often than not, that should read, did you wipe your opponent's army?
Did you table your opponent? Is for the most part.
I think it depends. Like if you've got like, I was talking about the KO example. If they've got like 3 or 4 heroes that you just shoot them off, you're like, well, I've not only have I done. If you do the one that you got to kill 3 units and kill all their heroes, and they've got 3 heroes, and you just shoot them all off in one turn, you go, well, not only have I done that one, but I've done 2 in one phase. Yeah. So one shooting phase, I've just done both. Even.
Or the. Sorry, Russell.
I was going to say like Rain of Stars from the Star Drake over the game.
Yeah, does it? Or Peter's list from last week, we talked about the Leeuwenhoek one that like basically kills all the support heroes.
One Kevlar,
just kill them all on the first turn.
But he's only got one Kevlar on his list, so you kill that one hero, you win that mission. So if I was playing against that, I would pick that because it's like, it's.
Or he 1-drops and kills all your heroes.
Maybe.
And he chooses it, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But I'm just saying that if I was playing against him, that would be a good mission because there's one model I have to kill with 5 wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, with 5 save.
Yeah.
I think it's a very difficult one, but it generally fits with the plan of winning the primary objective quite nicely. So it's if you're going to get the game anyway, you've got a good chance of getting that one. So it doesn't involve you do anything particularly weird, but it might just be really difficult to get. Invader. So I think this one's good for a few people, but it's quite hard in general. At the end of the battle, you have more friendly units wholly within your opponent's territory than your opponent has wholly within your territory. Again, hello, Terry.
Yeah, I think you just plan for that one, don't you? And go, well, if I'm going to win, I'm going to be in their deployment zone and they're not going to have enough to outscore my units anyway. Yeah, I'd quite happily take that one, I think.
Though. Yeah, I think it's
you
quite
just have to be
difficult
careful
on the
of things
armies
that drop down and score late game, don't you? That just come in at the back and outnumber your units.
Yeah.
If you're playing daughters, you can have like 2 units of Kinori that you can use to basically you can keep them off the table to the last round and just basically go, well, I'm going to make sure that you're not scoring that, or I am scoring that. So
that's such a good one for screwing with your opponent's head, because they could be off the table threatening that, and really you're threatening multiple things, and your opponent's staying back, and you're just giving yourself a like an easier job in the middle of the board. It's quite difficult for those armies that have the strategy of like asserting objective dominance early on, and then are often like, I don't know, they've lost 2/3 of their army by the end of the game, but they've won the major. So I think that's a bit of a rock paper scissors one. Some armies great, other armies quite a bit more difficult. Marked for death. When you reveal this auxiliary objective, your opponent must pick one unit in their starting army that is not a hero. You complete this auxiliary objective if that unit is destroyed before the end of the battle. So again, it's your opponent picking it, but some armies are going to be amazing at this, and some armies are going to be pretty bad.
Okay, so with this one, let's say you're having a great game, and you whittle your opponent down to one unit left, and then reveal this and go, well, you have to pick that one unit, and then I'm going to kill it.
No, it's revealed at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
So
Oh, is it with the
auxiliaries,
start?
yeah, auxiliaries are
you
picked
write them
before
down
then
and
Oh, of
revealed.
course, yeah, it is, yeah.
So
Yeah.
they would have to. So basically, I think if you've got a very defensive unit like 30 plate bearers, 40 more tech guard,
Yeah,
you know, they're never. You can almost like say you can try and kill it, but good luck with that.
Again, with
You
the
can also bait
canaries,
people. Yeah.
stuff that's off the board again. Oh, I'll pick these canary and then I'll drop them in right at the end
Turn 5.
on
3
the other
feet
side
to
of the
right.
board. Yeah.
I don't think there's many stuff that can stay off until turn 5, apart from probably Kinnerai and the Prime. I think's the only things. Because I think most books have got a 3 turn limit before their counter's
Even
destroyed.
3 turns is great though, isn't it? Because the battle's probably going on around the centre or off to the side, you know, over the main primary objectives of the game, and you just pop on the other side and go, yeah, I'll just sit in this corner.
Yeah.
Or,
A lot
I
of the
think
time,
like-
like, so like Canary or Soul Scryers are quite good for that, just because they don't really. I mean, Canary are really good at sniping heroes and objective control. You're gonna. I mean, I don't know if I put it on the Prime because like the Prime has more battlefield impact on me winning the major than him getting 5 points for this objective.
A lot of the time with
I
him,
think
though,
it's like there's throwaway ones.
Yeah, a lot of the time with him though, you because he doesn't take a massive amount of hits back before he dies. A lot of the time with him, you're dropping down and you're kind of like wiping out those 10 guys that are standing on your opponent's home objective or something like that. In which case, if you drop down turn 3 and you muller 3 units and then just go and stand off to the side, he might have and just stay there pew-pewing people. He might have done his job anyway. Yeah. So that one's again another flip-floppy one. This one I think is really hard. Mass Panic. You complete this auxiliary objective if 2 or more different enemy units fail a battle shock test in the same battle round. So some armies don't take battle shock, and it's hard to engineer anyway.
It was hard enough doing it with 1 unit in the agendas, let alone 2.
Right?
Terror, wasn't it, before?
Terrify, yeah.
Terrify. Yeah, I'd never pick that one because it was just everything was bravery 10 or immune to battle shock.
But this isn't...
Battle shock, like, spend a command point, don't they? And stop it with a command point as well.
This is... I think Terrify, though, was destroy unit, wasn't it? This is just fail. So, again, it's...
okay.
You could make them fail their test, but they don't necessarily die from it. So if they lose their model. So, I mean, it might even play into the fact that if you want your opponent to spend their command points on Inspiring Presence because you want them to burn their command points. So if you're playing against an army that's got lots of units with low bravery and you spread your damage out and you say, well, you either spend your points or you fail your battle shot by 1 point, that's still enough for me to get the mission. So you could use it to give your opponent a decision to make, which they might not normally would do. They'd normally just go, I'll just let them put a couple models run, I don't care.
Yeah, like Daughters, if they're not going to be able to pile in and attack you in their next hero phase,
they're immune to battle shot.
At that point.
They're basically immune because they just spend the point. They just use a Witch Brew, they're all immune to battle shock, they get to reroll everything, so bad example.
I think it's quite good for Lumineth as well. Like Lumineth are good because you can use the Voice of the Mountain to reduce bravery by 2, get the Cathlar, bounce the battle shocks. Like, you know, if you've got that unit of Wardens fighting 2 units and your opponent's like not got, and maybe you've comboed it with the Total Eclipse, so then they're spending 2 command points for 1, so they're not going to be able to use their command points to stop. So you can Voice of the Mountain plus 2 bravery, Total Eclipse, 2 command points for 1, and then bounce the 2 up battle shock off your Wardens.
It just sounds like a really lame playlist. Voice?
Voice of the Mountain.
Voice
Voice
of
of the
the-
Mountain.
yeah. And what was the other
Total
one?
Eclipse.
Total Eclipse of the Mountain or whatever.
Yeah. Total Eclipse. Voice of the Mountain.
It's like
So,
the
that was
worst metal
superhero.
band playlist, like album.
Yeah.
But what I
You're
would
the
say as well,
best.
it says Mass Panic. It's in the battle round, so they could fail a battle shock in their turn and your turn. So it's like it's
Okay.
not. So actually, I think it's actually a lot easier than Terrify, because Terrify you have
Yeah.
to destroy a unit. This one you just
Okay,
fail,
very good point.
and it's within a round. So I don't think it's too bad. Obviously, if you're playing against Bone Reapers, you're never getting that one. But you know, it's...
Yeah. I think this is one of the ones that if you think you can get it in your first couple of games, you spend these ones early, you get them out the way, and then you leave yourself with the more flexible ones.
Yeah.
So, Overwhelm. You complete this objective if any enemy hero is slain by an attack made with a melee weapon by a friendly battle line unit. 3
Nope.
requirements. Hard.
yeah.
Depends on what it goes into, doesn't it? Like Liberator's into like a 5 wound hero, kills it.
Well,
but
I've
no,
killed
just
a gash
remember,
with Plague Bearers once, so
yeah.
just
Just remember,
happen
it's,
again, I suppose.
just remember the battle line unit bit means it's not your summoned units now.
Yeah,
But
it's,
come on, because they
it's
don't count the
30
battle
Plague
line
Bearers, isn't
anymore.
it? It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's specific and hard. But
Yeah.
yeah, just it's what it is. Some armies obviously way better, like Fire Slayers,
Yeah.
if they're going to
Yeah,
roll
daughters,
your
because all
opponent
your
in.
damage comes from your Witch Elves anyway, doesn't it? So you're going to be
exactly,
killing
yeah.
stuff, so...
The KO list would be
So-
good at it, because the engine riggers would be battle line if
Battle
you've
line.
got the engine master in the dirigible suit. So basically, your aphomatic saws, which are like Ren 2 damage D3.
Yeah,
You
3s
go
and
in
2s
with
or
a unit of
something.
them, and well, I think they are like 3s and 2s, 3-1 and 1s to hit, and you just go in and just go like, well, I'll just murder ice you with the saws, and they're so fast and they fly, you can probably get them where you need them to get to a hero, because it's not, you don't have to specify again, and you're probably helping you do the mission by alpha striking a hero anyway. So
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's it depends on your army. I think if you've got even like Mortec Guard will quite easily kill a hero in combat. And
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Of course
My
they will.
piggies-
It's Mortec Guard, mate. OBR,
piggies
don't
might
take
not
it.
do
They
a
don't
battle.
play in any of these auxiliary things. It's like, yeah, they kill all the heroes, yeah, they don't die. Like, yeah, they like, you don't take battle shock. OBR. Whee.
So, moving on. Pillage. When you reveal this objective, you must pick one terrain feature wholly within your opponent's territory. Sometimes there isn't one of those. You complete this if you have a friendly unit with a combined wounds characteristic of 5 or more within 3 of that feature at the end of any battle round. This objective cannot be completed using a unit that was set up on the battlefield in the same battle round.
Okay, so
Hard.
it stops the Canary, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's
The drop down.
if you see a good bit of terrain, you pick this one, but try and get it out the way early, because you could just get unlucky. Like where the terrain is or the size of it, their terrain could be on their objective and they could be not moving off it.
Don't forget some armies have their own terrain piece that they have to put in their territory.
Good point.
Yeah.
So you
like-
could pick their terrain feature and just get within 3 of it and be like, well,
Yeah, like the Altar of Skulls or whatever for Corp
Yeah, and
has to go in there.
the Loon
territory,
Shrine,
doesn't it? So-
Loon Shrine as well. I think.
Yeah.
I think the you, even if you've got one that you can set up like the Ossiarch Bone Reapers piece, you put up before the game starts, so you can ensure that's wholly within their territory. And when they pick table sides, they might pick the other side, but you can almost manipulate the table. Same with like Sylvaneth as well.
Yeah, it's
Or
a good point.
IDK boats, right? Because
Yeah.
you've got 2 boats.
One in
then,
each.
so you just go one in your deployment. Yeah, one in each, and then just be a nuisance.
Because you're like, well, I'm gonna get within 3 of it. So I think is it the end
like-
of battle round? Yeah. So
Yeah,
Fairly-
it's like
I think
2
that's
wheels,
fairly
isn't it,
easy.
next to it.
particularly if you're going second in the round, because you just go and move
Yeah.
on to it and go, well, I've got it. So
Yeah.
That's mine now. Yep. Moving on. Prey on the Weak. You complete this if all the battle line units in your opponent's starting army are destroyed before the end of the battle, aka wipe your
That's okay,
opponent again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prize
Well, I mean,
possession.
like, some people take minimum battle line, don't they, as well? So like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to take 3 units of 5 and then do the rest of the cool shit and just go kill, kill, kill. Right, okay,
Yeah.
that's wonder.
The night on that side though, like if they spent 90 points on a unit of Arcanauts, they probably don't mind leaving them in a corner to deny it.
Yeah.
leave 'em on a
Prey on
boat.
the
Or like
Weak.
all those death armies. All those death armies with
Yeah.
15 dogs chasing the dragons around.
I don't see them anymore because they put the price of dogs, necromancers, and everything else up, and it's not viable for a tournament army anymore. So, plus the fact if you return them from the graves, they're not dead, so you wouldn't score it.
So, prized possession, which is basically ancient heirlooms, I think. When you reveal this objective, you must pick one friendly hero with an artifact of power. You complete it if that hero has not been slain by the end of the battle.
Yeah,
If you,
so it's slightly different
resilient
to
heroes.
heirlooms, because that used to be you just had to have one left, didn't you? So if you had multiple, you could risk losing one, but you just had to keep one alive. But this one, it's a specific hero, isn't it? So you just pick your most survivable artifact and just hope that they can hang on.
Yeah, if you've got named characters, it can get a bit more tricky. Say you've got a big dude supported by a whatever, it can be quite difficult to keep your whatever alive. If it's a 5-wound wizard with an ablative item on it, because why not? But fairly standard. But silly objective, you must pick one terrain feature that is not within your territory. You complete it if you have one or more friendly units within 3 of that terrain feature at the end of the 4th battle round. It's kind of...
This reminds me of a mission from way back in the day where it wasn't at the end of the game. It was like mid. Was it one of the things that it was in the tournament pack that was done for Clash, wasn't it? It was the Mocomp mission.
Yeah.
Where it was like about round 3 or something. You had to do that. It was almost the same, I think.
Yeah.
It's quite a cool one, but smaller armies might struggle with this if all the units have to be doing something useful. But yeah, just kind of...
It's just remembering. It's just remembering at the end of turn you've got to have a unit stood there, and then I think it can be a bit tricky.
Territorial. You must pick one objective on the battlefield. You complete this if you control that objective at the end of 2 consecutive battle rounds, not turns, battle rounds.
So that's going to be like 3 places of power, something like that you've got. You know, you're going to try and hold those objectives, or something along those lines. It's going to be difficult for some armies, but it's also, if you've done that, you're probably winning the game, so you double down on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those again. If you're going to do well, pick this.
I think if you've got a mission, one that's got a home objective as well, it's a fairly easy one because you want to protect it anyway.
Knife to the heart, like sticking dudes on it.
Or Battle for the Past, Focal Points, or those ones that you've got the diamond one's worth 4, theirs worth 4, yours is worth 1, sides are worth 2. Those sort of missions. Total Conquest as well. There's one in your back corner where you deploy, so you could just keep that one. But again, especially if you're playing against a slow opponent who doesn't have a lot of teleport in it, they're not going to get there in 2 turns to get you off of it. So
final one is Vengeful Counter, which is pretty cool. You complete this if any enemy units are destroyed in the same turn that any friendly units are destroyed. Not too bad to engineer, really, in most scenarios.
I think it's quite easy.
Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward. One thing I was just looking for, does it say what you have to write the 15 that you're going to use on your list?
What you mean for the tournament pack?
Yeah,
I
I
don't think
see
so.
it in there. So you can sort of pick and choose these as you go anyway. You sort of pick I'm definitely going to do these 10, 12, and then you'd sort of engineer the last couple of
GW events where they ask you to write the 15 that you're taking.
Yeah.
When you go to the event, so they might. I don't know. Like, it would be. You'd think that they'd have it in there, but like usually at GW events, they'd be like, right, okay, write down what you're using, so then we can.
And then you can decide to not use the 3 impossible ones for your list before you go to the event.
I think
I don't know.
I don't think there's any comment on here about in this pack as well about not duplicating them. It says must pick 3 different in each round of the tournament. Yeah. But I don't think you'll be forced to pick the 15 out of the 18 because sometimes you just won't be able to do it. Like so
I think as long as you're recording them, you have to record which ones you used, and by the end you will have used 15 and you won't have used 3. And they're probably always going to be the same 3.
As a TO, I wouldn't ask you to restrict yourself down to 15, because it's not like you're playing 5 out of 18. You're playing 15 out of 18. So
yeah,
it's not worth getting people to make that choice pre-tournament, as long as you can't duplicate.
You're probably not going to do the same. Round. You're probably not going to do the same 3 anyway. When you write your list, you go, well, I can't do those 3, so I'm just going to do the other 15 anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually not bad like that you can just choose as you go, because like we've all turned up to the table sometimes, and this is going to sound really bad, but we've all turned up to the table sometimes, and you're like this guy's obviously here for a different reason at a tournament than I'd be there for. You know, I would be
first event ever or whatever.
Yeah, and like they've got like like an entire like troll army with none of the optimal bits, and you're like, okay, cool, like I'm just gonna, and I've got like 60 Fire Slayer, like 60 Hearthguard Berserkers, and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna walk over it. So then you can maybe, you're gonna win that mission, so you then maybe choose one of the harder ones that then that tees you up for the easier ones later on.
You just take the 3 hardest ones and hope that you don't you don't fail it.
Don't do a Matt Leons and get Troggoth Doff unexpectedly with your Deepkin, wasn't it?
It's something like that, I think. Yeah.
I love that troll army.
I think like the strategy you employ for choosing your missions, like whether you like Terry says, you play someone who perhaps isn't as seasoned as yourself, and you think, well, I can guarantee these ones really easily because I know that I'm probably going to wipe them off the table, and that allows you to claim those points against a good player, like later on, and when you're someone who's more at your level, when you've gone through the Swiss system, there's going to be a harder game, and so they're going to be harder to do. So
it's just another type of resource management, isn't it, basically?
Yeah, and I think the getting used to them and understanding what you can use when is going to be really important.
Yeah, exactly that, mate. I think like you touched on, you're going to want the easiest missions in the hardest games so that you can guarantee you get those 15 points. And also one of the things that I'd be doing just going forward to tournaments would be sitting down and reading each of these and looking at my list and then reading them again and knowing how they affect how I play the game. They're going to be a crucial part of how I play going forward. So it would make sense to, I think, like for a tip, just don't turn up to an event and use these as an afterthought. They need to be part of your prep for the event, and
so even have like your easiest 6 and your worst 6 written down or something, and then you've just got something to, because 18 is a lot, especially your first 2 games. You've got 18 and 15 to choose from at that point.
I think you've got to be really careful as well that in some scenarios some of those aren't possible, so you need to really make sure that if you're in a 5-round event and there's 18 scenarios, that you don't want to get to the last round and then the scenario dictates you're not going to be able to get your mission. So there are some that you will, depending on what mission comes up, you will use straight away, because in that mission they're achievable, whereas in other missions they're not, and you can't risk it. You can't risk holding on to those.
Exactly. It's understanding which aren't achievable as well. It's knowing which ones aren't achievable, so that it's like, don't think about it. Like Russ says, don't let yourself get caught out by playing trying to play the objective mission in the last round of a tournament on table 1 and go, I mean, you wouldn't be if you're on table 1 last round of a tournament, but with the objective in the territory, it's knowing which ones are achievable, which missions you cannot physically win with that mission. You can't score those objectives. So just understanding how they interact in the game with the missions is, I think, massive now. I mean, list design, playing lots of games, and this is like the 3 legs of the tripod, I think, maybe.
It's all about knowledge, isn't it? Like if you know the missions, and you know the scenarios, and you know the combinations, and you know your army, you know their army, when you come to a table you can make all those decisions you have to make at the beginning. You're making an informed decision. And like I said, some people can read and memorize it, other people can have to play loads of games and get that behavior ingrained. And I think it's understanding how you work and give yourself the best possible chance to score as many points as possible. And I'm kind of a bit of a believer in, if you can get points, even if it's against someone that you think, I'm probably going to win this game anyway, it's just get the points that are available. Like just
the
beat what's in
moment,
front of
yeah.
you, get everything you can get. Because the worst thing is if you play someone that you think you're going to beat, and you put the hardest missions in, you don't achieve them. But later on, you've got an easy mission, but you're playing someone you're probably not going to beat, and you don't get the mission either. And then you've doubled down on failure, basically.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So I think a confidence will come into it and being able to read the table state. But I think for me, I would like to use the missions to almost manipulate my opponent's thought process.
Yeah.
So I think in some, when it's like pick their hero, or you pick a unit, or you can almost like, they've got to kill my navigator who's in the gun hauler with the collapsible compartment in the corner of the board. Go on then, go get him. Like, I don't care. He's done his job. He can shoot you for 24 inches away. Come get him. And the point is, it's like you can. I think you can really mess with people with these missions, especially
Give them more decisions.
Yeah, exactly. You give them more opportunities to make the wrong decision. So I do really like what they add to the game. I think they add a real level of depth.
I like they're all not super easily achievable either. It might be just these days, like whereas it used to be you expect to get one, like a good player is going to get 100% in their first 4 games out of 5. Perhaps that's just way less achievable now, and that's just a shift in expectations. It will break people up in top tables more easily and more obviously, and it'll probably encourage people to write slightly more well-rounded lists also. So I don't see any negatives to them whatsoever, and I kind of like the struggle. I wish there was less to think about, but I'll get over it.
It's the wrong game if you don't want to think. You go play something else.
Snap.
Yeah.
It's too complicated. The images look the same. But I think that about wraps up for auxiliary objectives. So we're a big fan. We think they're going to add a level, and it would be really interesting to see how TOs use that mechanic going forward.
If you are going to run an event and you're going to force people to write them down or anything like that, like let us know your thoughts on it. And also if you think you've got a list that is like that perhaps doesn't overtly look amazing, like Les has already mentioned the new elves. I think they're going to excel at this type of stuff, and the list that Les is going to talk about later actually is a very good example of something that does a little bit of everything and probably has real equity in terms of being able to cash in these.
Yeah, we'll see, he says.
So if you like this content and you want to hear more of this kind of stuff, then make sure you let us know what you want us to talk about. Subscribe and comment below. That'd be great. And if you want to know when we release a video, hit the notification bell, and you can get the updates as they happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we'll take a short break and we'll be back with the next section.